He mocked my lunchbox in front of the whole office. Said I was a man-child. Said I'd never be taken seriously. But what he didn't know was that the blue box he laughed at, it held every part of me I fought to protect. My childhood, my scars, my silence, and my fire. Today I'm telling you the story of how that little plastic box helped me reclaim my voice one cruel joke at a time. If you've ever been humiliated for simply being yourself, this story is for you. They said sticks and stones would break bones, but words wouldn't hurt. They lied. The first time Matt commented on my lunchbox, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that's what you're supposed to do when you're 30, sitting in a glass-walled office and trying not to be the weird one. "Nice lunchbox, Eli," he said loud enough for the others to hear. "My kid has the same one." He leaned back in his leather chair toothpick between his teeth and smirked. The box was bright blue, plastic, scuffed along the edges. Pikachu still smiled on the front, though the sticker had begun to fade with time. I had owned it for 15 years. It was the perfect size, held my food cold, and it reminded me of something safe, something before. I gave a small smile. "It still works." He chuckled. "Sure it does, man. Just saying kinda looks like you stole it from a third grader." Laughter. Soft at first, then louder. It spilled from the row behind me, bounced off the glass walls like echo chambers. The kind of laughter that doesn't ask for your permission. I looked down at the box, suddenly hyper-aware of how childish it must seem in a room full of black leather briefcases and stainless steel thermoses. But still, I didn't say anything. I just went back to my desk. A quiet nod. A quiet lunch. A quiet me. I didn't grow up with many things that were mine. Most days I went to school with lunch wrapped in old grocery bags. Sometimes just a sandwich. Sometimes nothing. The day I got that lunchbox, I was 10. It was a yard sale, fined $2. My mom cleaned it, lined it with aluminum foil, and surprised me the night before school. I remember tracing the shape of Pikachu's ears with my thumb. I remember how proud I felt carrying it to class, like maybe, just maybe, I belonged. That feeling didn't last long. Matt wasn't done. The next day, he walked by my desk, looked straight at the lunchbox, and muttered, "Still rocking the cartoon thing." "Huh?" This time he didn't laugh, and neither did I. But I felt it. That heat crawling up my neck, that childhood shame clawing its way back through the years. "It's a box," I said, keeping my tone even. "It keeps my food cold." He scoffed. "It's unprofessional, Eli. We're not in kindergarten. Maybe time to upgrade." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because if I did, I think my voice would have cracked. The thing about humiliation is it doesn't always hit you all at once. Sometimes it drips, one word at a time. One comment, one look, one smirk. It accumulates, builds up like rust in your chest, until one day you don't recognize yourself in the bathroom mirror. That night, I went home and stared at the lunchbox on my kitchen counter. The way the blue plastic glowed under the fluorescent lights. I reached for it, but stopped. My fingers hovered over the lid. What was I holding on to? Why did I need it? Why did it still matter, but I couldn't throw it away? Not yet. Not because of him. By Friday, everyone seemed to know about it. As I sat down in the break room, I heard it again, louder this time, from across the microwave. "You know, Eli, some people grow up and get real lunch bags. Some don't. Matt, of course." I looked up. 3 others were with him. 2 from HR, 1 from marketing. None of them said a word. They just watched me, waiting to see what I'd do. Waiting to see if I'd break. I didn't. Instead, I zipped open the lid slowly, pulled out my sandwich, took a bite, and chewed. That was my answer. But inside, something cracked. It was the sound of a 10-year-old boy in my chest whispering, "Not again." I spent the afternoon in a fog. Emails blurred together. Keyboard clicks felt louder than usual. Every time someone walked by, I swore I could feel them looking at the blue box. By 4:00 p.m., I had tucked it under my desk, out of sight, out of shame. That's when I heard the knock. It was Lila. Quiet, soft-spoken Lila from the design team. She never said much to me before. She stood in the doorway, notebook in hand, then looked down at the lunchbox half hidden beneath the desk. "I think it's cool," she said softly. I blinked. "What?" She smiled. The lunchbox. I had a Sailor Moon one in college. Got weird looks. Didn't care. And just like that, something in my chest shifted. Not a healing, not a fix, but a small breath. A reminder that maybe not everyone was mad. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the lunchbox, the blue plastic warm in my hands. I thought about all the times I'd been told to act normal to fit in to be a man. I thought about my father, the way he threw away my sketchbooks when I was 13. The way he said, "No son of mine is going to paint damn cartoons." I thought about how many times I had swallowed myself just to be digestible to the world. And then I thought, maybe I was tired of being small. Maybe the blue box wasn't childish. Maybe it was a symbol. Not of who I was when I was 10, but of who I still refused to stop being. The first time I got punched for being weird, I was 7. It was recess. I had drawn a picture of Goku with wings crayon lines, heavy and proud, across notebook paper. I was showing it to James, a kid I thought might be my friend. He didn't look at the drawing. He looked at me, then down at my backpack. "Are you a girl or something?" he said. Before I could answer, his fist hit my chest. I fell backward onto the asphalt, the paper floating above me like a wounded flag. I didn't cry. I just lay there staring at the sky. The teacher didn't see. She never did. That was the first bruise. But the words, they kept coming. "Why do you talk like that? Why do you walk like that? You draw fairies. That's gay." I didn't even know what that word meant, only that it burned when they said it. Every day I walked home alone. Every day I tucked my drawings deep into my backpack, as if hiding them would make me smaller, less visible. But shame doesn't shrink you. It just eats you from the inside out. My dad didn't believe in feelings. "Be a man," he said when I told him what happened. "Next time someone hits you, you hit them harder. Or don't come home." He meant it. There was no softness in that house. No space for quiet boys who like colors and cartoons and feelings. So I learned to be silent, to nod when spoken to stop asking for art supplies, to replace drawings with math problems, to replace myself with someone more acceptable. But I never stopped carrying the lunchbox. He never knew about it. I kept it hidden in my closet like a secret religion. When I moved out at 19, it was the only thing I packed without hesitation. Now I was 28, and somehow, still here. Still defending a blue box to grown men who acted like children. Still swallowing old shame like it was part of lunch. Still hearing that voice inside me whispering, "You're too much. You're embarrassing. Grow up." Matt didn't invent those words. He just echoed them like every playground bully before him. And the worst part, some part of me still listened. The week after Lila spoke to me, I tried to switch it up. I bought a plain black lunch bag from the store, generic, forgettable, adult. I brought it to work on Monday. Nobody said a word. Matt didn't even look at me. And for a moment, I felt relief. I was invisible again. Safe. But then, I opened it. The sandwich was fine. So were the apple slices. But everything else felt wrong. Like I had cut off a part of myself and packed that instead. The silence of the black bag was louder than Matt's laughter had ever been. I ate quickly, without taste, without joy. When I zipped the bag shut, it felt like sealing a casket. That night, I dug through my closet. There it was, tucked behind sweaters I never wore, next to a shoebox full of the letters I never opened. The blue lunchbox, waiting. When I picked it up, something trembled inside me. Not sadness, not guilt, but anger. Anger that I'd let someone like Matt, some tired man, clinging to a fragile image of masculinity shamed me into shrinking again. I placed the lunchbox on the table, stared at it, dared myself to reclaim it. The next morning, I put my food in the blue box again. My hands shook as I packed it. I could already hear the whispers, already feel the stares. But this time, I decided not to hide it. I walked into the office with it swinging openly at my side. Every step felt like defiance. Every click of my shoes against the floor said, yes, I'm still here. Matt glanced up from his desk. His eyes narrowed. His jaw shifted slightly, but he said nothing. At lunch, I sat in the break room at the big table, not the one in the corner. The blue lunchbox sat in front of me like a challenge. People trickled in. Some glanced. One whispered. But again, no one said anything. Until Lila walked in. She sat beside me without a word, opened her own lunch wrapped in floral beeswax paper. Then she smiled. That's more like it, she said softly. I smiled back. It wasn't everything, but it was something. When I got home that night, I took a long shower. Steam filled the room. I leaned against the tile wall, let the water pour over my face, and cried quietly for the first time in years. Not from weakness, but from exhaustion, from carrying all this for so long. The shame, the fear, the self-erasure, and maybe also from the realization that I didn't want to hide anymore. Not for them, not for Matt, not even for the kid I used to be, who thought disappearing was the only way to survive. I walked out of the bathroom, dried off, looked at myself in the mirror. Still me, same tired eyes, same awkward posture. But something had shifted, barely visible, but real. A quiet promise echoing in my chest, you're allowed to take up space. It was Taco Tuesday, which meant the office cafeteria smelled like seasoned meat, lukewarm sour cream, and something faintly burned. I hated Taco Tuesdays, not for the food, but because it always meant everyone ate together. No takeout, no skipped lunch breaks, no hiding behind back-to-back meetings. Even the partners came down. And today, I had the lunchbox, the blue one, front and center. I stood in line with my tray and my not-tight stomach. Matt was 2 people behind me. I could hear his voice booming careless. Yeah, man, I told her if you want attention, go talk to HR, not me. Laughter, that ugly, slick kind, like oil on water. I didn't turn around. I grabbed my water, my napkin, and my lunch and walked to the main table. The long one, the one I usually avoided like the plague. Today I sat in the middle. I laid the box down deliberately, opened the lid, unwrapped my sandwich like it was sacred. 1 breath. 2. Don't tremble. Matt walked in. His eyes landed on me like a spotlight. His mouth curled into that familiar smirk. He whispered something to the guy next to him, Mark from accounting, and they both laughed. Then he approached. I could feel the tension ripple down the table, like everyone collectively stopped chewing. Look at that, Matt said loud enough for the whole table to hear. Back with the baby box. I didn't look up. I took another bite of my sandwich, chewed, swallowed. He stepped closer. What's inside today? Dino nuggets and juice boxes. Still, I said nothing. But my jaw clenched so hard, I felt it in my ears. Across from me, Lila froze mid-bite. Her eyes flicked to Matt, then to me. Someone 2 seats down chuckled nervously. That's when Matt leaned forward, palms on the table. I mean, seriously, Eli. He said, mock genuine. Is this like a statement, or are you just stuck in 2005? I closed the lunchbox slowly, wiped my mouth. Then I met his eyes. Steady, quiet, not angry, just done. No, Matt, I said. It's not a statement. He blinked. It's a lunchbox. A pause. Silence so thick you could slice it with a butter knife. And it bothers you, I added, more than it bothers me. The air shifted. Matt straightened, caught off guard. He tried to laugh, too loud, too forced, but no one joined him. Even Mark looked down at his tray. I stood, picked up the blue box, then looked around the table. I eat alone most days, I said, voice even breath calm. But not because of the box. I let that hang. It's because of people who think small things are permission to be cruel. Matt's mouth opened, but no words came out. I didn't wait. I turned, walked out, the box swinging gently at my side. I didn't go back to my desk. Instead, I went to the old conference room down the hall, room B2. Nobody used it anymore since they installed the new glass meeting pods. The lights flickered a bit, and the AC made a low rattling noise. But it was quiet, and more importantly, it was mine. I sat at the head of the old wooden table, set the box in front of me. Then I breathed. Long, deep, heavy. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like shrinking. That night, I found something unexpected in my inbox. An email, subject re-lunchroom incident. I opened it. It was from Lila. Hey, just wanted to say that was brave, what you did today. I don't think I could have stood up like that, not with everyone watching. Also, your lunchbox. It's cool. My little brother would have lost his mind over it. Anyway, if you ever want company in B2, I bring good snacks. L, I read it twice, then 3 times. My hand hovered over the keyboard. I didn't know what to say, but I knew something had changed. I left the office later than usual. As I stepped out into the parking garage, I noticed something scrawled on the back of my windshield in the dust. 2 words, grow up. The letters were jagged rushed. I stared at them for a long moment. Then, without flinching, I reached into the back seat, pulled out the lunchbox, opened it, dug out a napkin, and wiped the message clean. The world doesn't stop for small rebellions. But sometimes, just sometimes, it notices. And in that quiet, invisible shift, you begin to breathe a little freer. I still remember the day my mother sewed that patch onto my backpack. Pikachu, bright yellow cheeks, pink arms raised like he was cheering me on. It wasn't store-bought. It was hand-stitched from an old piece of cloth and a magazine photo. She stayed up half the night just to get the tale right. When I woke up that morning, it was already hanging on the doorknob, waiting for me to smile. And I did, until recess. A group of boys, 7th graders, older, louder, saw it first. They circled around me, eyes locked on the patch like it was a target. One of them, Jamal, reached forward without asking, ripped it straight off. The threads tore like veins snapping. Fag patch, he muttered, tossing it into the mud. They laughed. And I didn't even bend down to pick it up. I just stood there, frozen hands clenched around the straps of a bag that suddenly felt too bright, too loud. That was the first time I learned this lesson. Don't wear joy on your sleeve. Someone will always try to tear it off. I didn't tell my mother. When she noticed the patch missing, I told her it got snagged on the fence. She looked at me for a long moment, longer than usual. Then she nodded and never made another one. Neither of us said it out loud. But we both knew why. Shame doesn't come out of nowhere. It's passed down quietly like a family heirloom nobody asked for. My father used to say things like, "Men don't cry. You want respect? Look like you earned it." That's not how a man walks. He never hit me. He didn't have to. His silence was colder than any slap, his disappointment sharper than Matt's sarcasm could ever be. I tried for years to become the kind of man he wouldn't have to correct. Short hair, neutral clothes, a voice that never trembled. But somehow I always failed the test. There was always something too soft in the way I moved, too careful in the way I spoke. He never said the word, but I saw it in his eyes. Embarrassment. I hadn't spoken to my father in 4 years. The last conversation we had was about a job. "You finally got a suit and tie gig," he said, half smiling through the phone. "Took you long enough to stop playing around with your pencils." I told him I wasn't done drawing, that I still kept sketchbooks, that I designed layouts for a living now. He went quiet, then said, "So it's not a real job." Click. That was it. A week after the windshield incident, I got a call from my sister. Dad had a stroke, not fatal, but enough to change things. He was in recovery, silent most days. "I don't know how much longer we'll have him," she said. "You should come." I didn't answer, not right away. But that night, I sat on the floor of my apartment lunchbox in my lap, and I cried. Not because he was dying, but because part of me still wanted him to be proud, still wanted to be seen, still hadn't let go of that 10-year-old boy holding a ripped patch in the rain. I went to the hospital. The air smelled like bleach and rubber gloves. He was thinner than I remembered, pale, sunken. When he looked at me, there was a flicker of something recognition, maybe, or just memory. I sat beside the bed, opened the box in my hands, and laid it on the tray. Inside was a sandwich, a drawing, and the patch, the one I'd found years later buried in a shoebox behind my mother's sewing kit, still stained, still frayed. I held it out. "I kept it," I whispered. He blinked slowly, didn't speak, but for the first time, he didn't look away. I left without saying goodbye. Some things don't need words. Some wounds don't need closure. They just need air. The next morning, I walked into the office with the blue lunchbox in one hand and the patch sewn onto the strap of my backpack. Yes, I stitched it myself. Sloppy, uneven, but mine. It swayed gently as I walked. Every step a quiet declaration. I passed by Matt in the hallway. He looked up, then down, then away. No words, no smirk, just a blink and silence. Later that day, I found a sticky note on my monitor. It wasn't signed, but I knew the handwriting. "Your silence speaks louder than their noise." I smiled, folded the note, tucked it inside the lunchbox, right next to the patch. Rage doesn't always come with fists. Sometimes it's quiet, measured, like a slow leak in a tire you didn't even know was deflating. That's how mine felt, not explosive, but corrosive. I carried it in my stomach, and my teeth clenched behind polite smiles. And my shoulders hunched a little lower each day. I let the world tell me who I couldn't be. I didn't rage like my father, didn't scream or break things. I simmered. The week after the hospital visit, I found myself working later than usual, partly to avoid going home, partly because I didn't know what to do with stillness anymore. The office after 7 p.m. felt like a different world. No voices, no Matt, just the soft hum of the AC and the buzz of overhead lights. I sat with my sketchbook open, pencil in hand, not drawing for work, just drawing. First came a Pikachu, then a figure tall, slender, ambiguous, holding a lunchbox like a shield. Then fire. I didn't mean to add flames, but they crept in, curling around the feet, licking at the paper's edge like truth. That was when I realized something I wasn't healing. I was boiling. The next day, I walked into the office with that sketch tucked into the lid of my lunchbox. It wasn't for anyone else, but I wanted it near me, as a reminder of who I used to be, of who I was becoming, and of the fire I could no longer pretend wasn't there. Matt didn't speak to me for 2 days. Not a joke, not a comment, not even a glance. Which would have been a victory if it didn't feel like something darker was stirring underneath. People like Matt. They don't just stop, they wait. It happened on Thursday. I walked into the break room for lunch, blue box in hand, only to find it already crowded. A group stood near the coffee machine. Matt was in the center. I should have walked out, but I didn't. I sat, unlatching the box slowly, keeping my movements calm. Then the laughter started. I looked up. Matt was holding a small plastic container. A blue one, identical to mine. Except it was filled with baby carrots, applesauce, a tiny juice box, and a folded napkin that said in childish handwriting, "Have a great day, sweetie mucking." Perfectly staged. He held it up like a trophy, grinned. "Brought my own today," he said. "Thought I'd join the kiddie table." Laughter. Harder this time. More confident. Even from people who usually stayed quiet. My hands trembled under the table. But I didn't look down. I didn't cry. I stood. I walked over slow, deliberate, and stopped right in front of him. We were the same height. But somehow, he looked smaller. His grin faltered as I stared at the lunchbox in his hand. "You think this is funny?" I asked. He opened his mouth, but I didn't give him time. "You don't care about professionalism," I said, voice steady. "You care about control." The room quieted. "You mock what you don't understand. What doesn't fit into your tired little box?" Matt's eyes flicked to the others, searching for backup. None came. I leaned in just enough for only him to hear. "You're not powerful. You're loud. And I've learned how to stop listening." I turned, left the break room, lunch untouched. My hand still shook. But inside, something felt still, like a storm had finally passed. Or maybe like I had finally stepped into it and survived. That night, Lila messaged me. "They're still talking about what you said. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You made others realize they could too. Also, want to get lunch outside tomorrow? I know a spot with real food and zero mats." I smiled. Typed back, "Yes, but I'm bringing the blue box anyway." It earned the fresh air. Friday morning arrived with a strange calm. Not relief, not joy, just space. It had been months, maybe years, since I woke up without a clenched jaw or a headache before my feet hit the floor. The light outside my window was soft, the kind that doesn't demand anything. It just exists. I packed my lunch slowly, chose the sandwich I liked, added orange slices, a granola bar, one of those chocolate coins I used to save as a kid. Then I tucked the drawing, the one with flames, between the inner lining and the lid of the blue box. A secret reminder of all the fires I'd walked through and refused to let burn me down. Lila picked me up at noon. She drove an old Honda that smelled like lemon balm and second chances. The front seat was cluttered with sketch pads and empty gum wrappers. "Sorry," she said, brushing papers aside. "I live in chaos." I smiled. "It's honest." We didn't say much on the way. Didn't need to. Sometimes silence isn't awkward. It's earned. The cafe she took me to sat on a quiet street wrapped in ivy and chipped white paint. A small courtyard out back had 3 tables each, painted a different color. We picked the yellow one. Sunlight filtered through the leaves above, painting soft gold across our lunches. I opened the blue box like it was holy. Lila grinned, still rocking the classic, always. We ate in easy rhythm. No mocking, no judgment. Just shared bites, sips of lemonade, and the occasional sigh when the breeze felt just right. Halfway through, she asked me something unexpected. "Why'd you keep it?" I looked at her. She nodded toward the box. "I mean, you could have tossed it years ago." I paused, then said, "Because it's the only thing that's been mine." Without conditions. She didn't press, just nodded. That's when I pulled the sketch from the lid, unfolded it, laid it on the table between us. She studied it in silence. "You drew yourself," she said. I hesitated. Is it obvious? Only to someone who's done the same. Her eyes softened. Mine used to wear armor. Yours carries fire. When we finished eating, we sat in silence, watching a squirrel hop across the fence. "I think I'm going to frame that drawing," I said quietly. Lila smiled. "Proof of life," I nodded. "Yeah." Back at the office, something felt different. Not in them, in me. I wasn't afraid of the break room, or the whispers, or the smirks that might still flicker across certain faces. Because I had something none of them could take anymore. Rootedness. In my choices, in my symbols, in the boy I used to be, and the man that I was still becoming. I passed Matt in the hallway. He looked at me, eyes flicking to the lunchbox at my side. Then he kept walking. No words, no noise, just absence. Funny how silence used to feel like exile. Now it felt like victory. That evening, I stayed behind to clear out the old closet in room B2. Inside, I found things from a decade ago, dusty binders, tangled cords, a dried-up whiteboard marker. And, at the very back, a forgotten corkboard. Pinned to it was a sticky note. Faded ink, faint handwriting. Don't let them shrink you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I peeled it off, folded it carefully, and slid it into the lunchbox next to Lila's note. Little anchors, little proofs of life. As I left the office, the sun dipped low behind the buildings. Shadows stretched long across the sidewalk. I passed a child and his mother. He carried a bright red lunchbox with Marvel heroes plastered across the side. He skipped ahead, humming to himself, joyful, unapologetic. I didn't know him, but in that moment, I wished nothing but safety for him. No hands that would tear his color away. No voices that would call him too much. Just space. To be exactly as he was. When I got home, I placed the lunchbox on the shelf next to my sketchbooks. It didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like a relic, not of pain, but of persistence. And in that soft golden hour light, it almost glowed. There's something permanent about a name written in Sharpie. When I was 9, I etched mine inside the lid of the lunchbox block, letters shaky and uneven. Eli. Back then, it felt like staking a claim, like saying, "This is mine, I exist, don't take me." Over time, the marker faded, but never disappeared. That's how I knew the lunchbox outlasted every phase of hiding. The quiet years, the silent lunches, the mockery, the shame, the whispered jokes. Even when I buried it in the closet, even when I traded it for a black neoprene pouch to look normal, my name was still there, waiting. On Monday, HR finally responded. They wanted to schedule a conversation regarding interpersonal dynamics and professionalism in shared spaces. Code for, "We heard something happened, and we're pretending to care." I wasn't nervous. I wasn't even angry. Just tired. In the meeting room, a woman named Miss Cortez sat across from me. She had glasses that slid down her nose every few minutes. Beside her was Matt. He didn't look at me. Good. I didn't bring the lunchbox, but I wore the backpack with the Pikachu patch. Let them see it. Miss Cortez cleared her throat. "This won't be disciplinary. We just want to ensure a healthy, respectful workplace." She turned to me. "Eli, would you like to start?" I did. I told the truth. Not just about the lunchbox, but about what it had meant. How Matt had singled me out. Mocked me, staged props, weaponized laughter. I didn't raise my voice, didn't ask for pity. I told it like it was some people swing fists, others swing shame. He chose the latter. Matt shifted, uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke. It was just a joke. I looked at him, really looked. And I said, "No, Matt. It was a mirror. You just didn't like what it showed you." Afterward, Miss Cortez thanked me for my candor and said that there'd be follow-up. I walked out into the hallway feeling nothing and everything. It wasn't justice, not yet, but it was witnessing. And sometimes being witnessed is enough to breathe again. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I went back to my childhood bedroom. The house was smaller than I remembered. The wallpaper faded. The doorknob still stuck if you turned it too fast. Inside the room was a time capsule. Old posters, stacks of forgotten comics, the shadow of someone I used to be. I found another lunchbox there, red and rusted, a Power Rangers one. I had forgotten about it completely. On impulse, I flipped it open, empty, except for one folded paper, a note from my mom. "You are enough exactly as you are. I love you, Em." I sat down on the floor, and for the first time in years, I wept like a boy again. Not from pain, but from release. That night, I brought both lunchboxes home, set them side by side on the kitchen counter, blue and red, present and past. I took a new Sharpie, opened the lid of the red one, and beneath the old faded name from childhood, I wrote a second one, "Eli, still here." Next morning, I carried the blue box into work with ease. No shame, no hesitation, just peace. I ate with Lila again. She brought mango slices. I traded her half a cookie. And when we laughed, it wasn't to drown anything out. It was because we could. I caught Matt watching us from down the hall. For a second, he looked like he wanted to say something. But he didn't. And maybe that was the most honest thing he'd ever done. That afternoon, I passed the front desk and noticed something new. A child's drawing, pinned beside the staff schedule. A crayon figure holding a bright blue box. Next to it, in bold, uneven letters, "My dad is brave." My throat tightened. I didn't know who had put it there. Didn't need to. Somewhere along the line, we all carry something from childhood into the present. Some of us hide it, some of us weaponize it, and some of us, we reclaim it. It was just a box, plastic, faded, corners chipped from years of being dropped, kicked forgotten in gym lockers and under bus seats. But in the end, it held everything, not just food, but defiance, memory, proof. It held the child I used to be, the adult I fought to become, and every small version of me who had ever been told, "You're too much. You don't belong. Be less." I didn't know what to do with it now, not really. But I knew it no longer needed to hide. A week after the HR meeting, Matt submitted a request to transfer teams. No one said why. No memo. No farewell bagels in the break room. Just gone. The day after he left, someone taped over his nameplate. In black Sharpie, someone had written, "Silence isn't weakness. It's waiting to roar." I didn't write it, but I didn't take it down either. Lila and I kept eating lunch together. Sometimes in room B2. Sometimes at that yellow table behind the cafe. We didn't talk about Matt anymore. We didn't need to. Our conversations shifted art, family, fear, freedom. One day she asked if I'd ever considered submitting my sketch to the company's internal zine. I laughed. "That thing still exists." She smiled. "It does now. I'm the new editor." 2 weeks later, the latest issue came out. Front cover, my drawing. The figure with fire, with the box. With a title etched in bold typeface, "What We Carry." I didn't expect the messages. From co-workers, from people I'd never spoken to. One said thank you for putting into words what I couldn't say aloud. Another, I kept mine too. Mine was read. And one anonymous just said, "I wish I had your courage when I was younger. I hope it's not too late." It's never too late. One afternoon, I brought the blue box to my nephew's birthday party. He was 6 bright eyes, tangled curls, a grin made of pure mischief. He spotted it as I walked in, ran up. "What's that?" I knelt down, held it out. "This," I smile. "This is a time machine." He blinked. "Really, yup. It holds every version of me that made it here." He stared at it wide-eyed. "Can I see inside?" I opened it. Inside was a peanut butter sandwich, a folded note, and one of my old sketches. He stared, then grinned. "Cool. Can I make one too that night?" He scribbled his name inside a bright green lunchbox, his own, letters crooked and proud. I watched him quiet. And in that moment, I realized maybe we don't erase shame by shouting it down. Maybe we outgrow it. Layer by layer, lunch by lunch, one small brave day at a time. Sometimes I still carry the blue box. Not every day, but on the days I need reminding that I've survived worse, that I've stood still while the room laughed and walked out taller anyway, that I've been a child with trembling hands and an adult with shaky ones. And both of them mattered. Both of them are still inside me. One morning, months later, I found a new note in the box, slipped between the granola bar and the sketch. In Lila's handwriting, "What we carry isn't weakness. It's weight we chose to lift anyway. Keep carrying it. The world is watching." I smiled. Tucked the note beside all the others, the one from HR, the sticky note from B2, my mother's message from the Power Rangers box, my name, etched again and again, not fading, not disappearing, just becoming more mine. So yes, it was just a box. But what it held was me. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.